All right, let's dive into this. Archetypes, huh? We've got a pretty interesting mix of sources for this deep dive.
Yeah, it looks like we're covering everything from Jung to AI to branding.
Someone's been doing their research.
Definitely. It seems like you want the full picture, which is great. Archetypes are everywhere.
Right, it's like these patterns are embedded in, well, everything we do.
Kind of makes you wonder.
Speaking of, this PDF Archetypes claims these things influence like 99% of human behavior.
99%. That's a bold statement.
Right. It also says there are thousands of archetypes, not just the handful we usually hear about.
Thousands, huh? Well, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I see their point.
So not every archetype is created equal.
Exactly. Some definitely hold more weight than others.
Okay, so where do we even begin?
Well, we can't talk archetypes without mentioning Jung. He's kind of the OG when it comes to this stuff.
Right, Carl Jung. But for those who might not be familiar with his work,
Yeah, let's give a quick rundown.
hit us with the SparkNotes version.
Okay, so Jung believed that beneath our individual personalities, we share a collective unconscious.
A collective unconscious.
Exactly, like a universal library of images and patterns. These are what he called archetypes,
And these archetypes represent.
our most fundamental human experiences, our motivations, fears, desires, that kind of thing.
Okay, so like give me an example of an archetype.
Sure. Think of the hero, the sage, the shadow.
So these aren't literal people.
No, they're more like blueprints.
Blueprints for how we navigate the world.
Exactly. And that PDF you mentioned, with its 300 archetypes from accountants to zombies,
Yeah, it's a pretty wild list.
it shows you just how diverse these patterns can be.
But not all models are that extensive, right?
Right. Some are a bit more practical, like the 12 archetypes from the hero and the outlaw.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. It's big in the branding world, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
They use it to define brand personalities.
So what are some of the archetypes in that model?
Well, you've got the innocent, the orphan, the rebel, just to name a few.
Okay, those actually sound familiar, like characters we know from story.
Exactly. And that's not a coincidence. We're drawn to these archetypal figures.
So are you saying these archetypes are the reason certain stories resonate with us so much?
Absolutely. We see ourselves in these figures, or we aspire to be more like them. Think about it. What's a story you find truly captivating? What drives the main character?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to think about that one. But this is where it gets even crazier, right?
What's that?
This whole AI thing, this article, Archetypes and AI, it suggests that even artificial intelligence bumps into these patterns.
That is pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah, like are we saying machines have feelings now?
Not quite. It's more about the data we feed them. Think about it.
They did.
AI learns from our stories, our myths, our archetypes. It's all in there.
So even if we don't program AI to understand these archetypes,
They still emerge in the output, because that's what it's been trained on.
garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. Except in this case, it's more like archetypes in, archetypes out.
I like that. And speaking of archetypes coming out in unexpected ways, this other source, The Secret of Archetype, it claims you can actually prompt AI as specific archetypes to change its output.
Now, that's interesting.
Right, like giving the AI a specific lens to view the world through.
It's fascinating.
So instead of just saying, write me a song, you'd tell the AI.
Write me a song as the lover. Exactly.
And that would theoretically change the entire feel of the song.
That's the idea. It's about tapping into a deeper level of understanding.
But how does that actually work? What does it even mean for AI to embody an archetype like the lover?
Well, the secret of archetype actually uses a really good example.
Okay, I'm listening.
Venus,
Venus.
like the planet.
Well, Venus in mythology and astrology, it's associated with love, beauty, harmony, all that good stuff.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. The article argues that prompting AI as Venus isn't about getting some cheesy love song. It's about accessing a deeper understanding of what Venus represents.
So more than just roses and chocolate.
Exactly. It's about themes of attraction, connection, maybe even self-love.
Yeah.
It's about infusing the AI's output with that Venusian energy.
Wow, that's actually really interesting. But this whole thing with archetypes and AI makes me wonder, are we just projecting our own biases onto it? I mean, AI learns from us, right? So if we're feeding it biased information,
It's going to reflect those biases in its output. Absolutely.
it's like that saying, you are what you eat.
Exactly. Or in AI's case, you are what you learn. And this whole idea of inherited bias is a big one.
Yeah, Archetypes in AI actually talks about that, doesn't it?
It does. It talks about how important it is to make sure the data we use to train AI is as diverse as possible.
Otherwise, we're just perpetuating existing stereotypes.
Exactly. And those stereotypes can have real-world consequences, especially as we integrate AI into more areas of our lives.
Okay, so let's say we have an AI system that's designed to assess job candidates.
Right, a very real possibility in the near future.
If that AI has been trained on data that reflects gender bias, for example,
It might unconsciously favor male candidates over female candidates.
even if it's not explicitly programmed to do so.
Precisely. And that's a huge problem.
Okay, so how do we fix it? How do we make sure AI doesn't just become a mirror of our own biases?
Well, it starts with the data. We need to be much more intentional about what we're feeding these AI systems.
So instead of just training AI on, like, classic Western literature,
Which could be pretty homogenous, let's be honest.
we need to make sure it's exposed to a wider range of perspectives.
Different cultures, different time periods, voices that challenge the status quo.
It's about showing AI that there are many ways to be human.
Many ways to be a hero, a leader, a caregiver, you name it.
It's almost like we need to curate a more balanced diet for AI.
I like that analogy. And it's not just about quantity, it's about quality too.
What do you mean?
Well, we need to make sure the data we're using is accurate, representative, and free from harmful stereotypes.
Which is a pretty tall order.
It is. It's a huge task.
Mm.
But it's essential if we want to create AI that is truly fair and unbiased.
So it's not just about teaching AI to think like humans.
It's about teaching it to think better than us.
to recognize and challenge our own limitations.
Exactly. It's about using AI as a tool for progress, not just replication.
And that brings us back to this whole idea of subjectivity, right?
Because archetypes themselves can be interpreted in many different ways.
Like one person's hero might be another person's villain.
Exactly. Which is why it's so important to be aware of our own biases.
And to approach these concepts with a critical eye. Just because something is labeled as an archetype doesn't mean it's inherently true or accurate. We were looking at that article being objective earlier.
Right.
It seemed a little skeptical of Jung.
It did have some valid points, though.
Like how easy it is to get carried away with this whole archetype thing.
Exactly.
Like when you learn a new word, suddenly you see it everywhere.
It's like it was always there, but you just weren't paying attention.
So how do we avoid that? How do we make sure we're not just seeing archetypes everywhere because we want to?
The article talked about focusing on personal resonance.
Personal resonance, what does that even mean?
It means asking yourself, does this archetype really speak to me?
Yeah.
If it does, why? What is it about this archetype that I connect with?
So it's not about putting ourselves or others into these neat little boxes.
Claro.
It's more about using archetypes as a tool for self-discovery.
Exactly.
Okay, I can get behind that. So much to think about. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
From Jung to AI to, well, everything in between.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is. It's like these patterns, these archetypes, they're woven into the fabric of our existence.
I love that. It's true, though. They transcend time and culture and even technology.
Maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this.
What's that?
To approach the world with a sense of curiosity, a sense of wonder.
Always open to new connections, deeper meanings.
Exactly. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Until next time.
We'll leave you with one final thought to ponder. If these archetypal patterns are so powerful that they even show up in the AI we create, what other hidden connections are out there just waiting to be discovered?